Hey, this is Eric Deloach, residential book author, and we have another edition, another show of American Authors and Others. Today we have a very special guest uh, that everybody wants to meet, and that is very exciting. And this individual is doing outstanding and great things for the community, and I guess you would say the nation and world at large. So with no further ado, I'm going to allow her to introduce herself, and we will go from there.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rita Daniels, and I am a great, great, great grandniece to Harriet Tubman. I have started the Harriet Tubman Learning Center, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and that was initiated back in 2016 when my mother and I sat down and talked about what can we do to continue a legacy of Harriet Tubman. And so we started that because Harriet Tubman was illiterate as well. And she became an American hero, an abolitionist, a political activist, and she risked her freedom and safety to protect others. So that is why the Harriet Tubman Learning Center was born. And we offer STEM, robotics, youth entrepreneurship programs, cultural arts, all of those items and initiatives are something that we had started. I will honestly say that since COVID, earlier, probably in 2019 when it started, I hate to say it, but my mother passed away in 2019. It's very hard to talk about because she was my ringleader. She was my go-getter, the pusher that said, keep going, keep going. Those are the words that Aunt Harriet would say back when she was doing what she did. That's how she was able to free other slaves, by telling them, don't give up, keep going, just keep going. So that's what I'm doing. Of course, like I mentioned, we had to shut down, but we are in a position of where we want to reopen, and we need everyone's assistance with that. So the only way I can do that is we need your support. We want to open in Connecticut, DC, Auburn, New York, where Harriet Tubman lived the last 50 plus years of her life. And that is where I'm from. That's where my mother's from. That's where my great grandmother's from. And we can just go on, and that's where they're buried, in the Auburn Fort Hill Cemetery. So right at this point, all I can say is we need you to reach out and help. We do have a website, harriettubmanlearningcenter.org, and we need you to send in your donations so we can get these schools open. It's important. That's for the underserved, underprivileged, and those that don't have. A lot of our kids are falling behind in school as well. Can't read past 4th grade level, but we want to get them on track. And that's what it's for.
I want to commend you for what you're doing and keeping her legacy alive. I'm definitely a huge fan, and I definitely admire, Harriet Tubman. Growing up and, reading about her in school, I was, was influenced and impacted by the great work that she did. I mean, this basically supernatural work that she did that most people, would not even think to do. And I guess let's just personalize it. Okay, so where we, and this is kind of because we know that you're going to be an author for the audience. She will be, the book will be coming sometime, I think next year. She's working with a best-selling author. So I know that you're looking forward to it. I'm definitely looking forward to it. But since you're going to be a future author, so we have a certain cadence over here. And so I want to ask you, where were you born? and just kind of personalize it. And where did you grow up? Just to kind of start there.
Okay, so I was born in Auburn, New York, which I
Okay.
mentioned earlier,
Yes.
where Harriet Tubman lived the last 50 plus years of her life. Her
Yes.
parents, that's where she took her parents and a lot of her family members and friends. They ended up living in Auburn. Very small rural city, probably has about, they might have upgraded a little bit to maybe 3 or 4 stoplights.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, so growing up in Auburn, New York was not an easy
Mhm.
city to grow up in, is because it is a predominantly, the people just don't look like us. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So one of the things that my father would always tell us as we were growing up, I'm a family of 9 children.
Okay.
So 6 girls and I'm sorry, 7 girls and 2 boys, because I did not include myself. So
Okay.
there's 7 girls and 2 boys. And we all were always told that when you get a certain age, do not stay in Auburn. Just move away and do
Okay.
whatever it is you need to achieve from that standpoint. So it wasn't until I, about the age of 9, is when
Okay.
I learned about being related to Harriet Tubman, because going to
Okay.
school in Auburn, there's one little paragraph about Harriet Tubman.
Okay.
And that one paragraph was that she was a thief. She stole, there was nothing positive about Harriet Tubman.
Wow.
And so in the 9th grade, I'm sorry, at the age of 9,
Right.
what we had to do was, there were probably 3 Blacks in the classroom and 19 others.
Okay.
And so we had to draw names of
Okay.
who we're going to write about. It just so happens I drew Harriet Tubman's name.
Wow.
And so for me, not knowing anything about it, and mind you, let me just say that,
Mhm.
my mother didn't know about Harriet Tubman being even related to her. So mind you, my mother's passed away at the age of 87.
Okay.
And she and my aunt, they didn't find out about being related to Harriet Tubman until they were in their 20s.
Okay.
And so for me, it was something that they never talked about, how
Okay.
we were related. But one of the things about me, I have this inquisitive mind.
Okay.
And so coming home with my task, I
Mhm.
was crying about it, because I chose a person that was a thief, and there was a bounty on her head.
Okay.
That all of these things that were so negative, I'm like, okay, so I got to write an essay about this person.
Right.
And it means research. And I'm telling my mom, because I'm like, I don't know what to write, because there's nothing good about her. So my mother, she looked at me and she said, who do you have to write about? I said, Harriet Tubman. And so she said to me, well, Rita, I just want you to know that we are related to this woman. Okay, so shock.
Right. Right.
Come on
Right.
here, okay? I'm related to someone that in our books has nothing positive about her. But my
Right.
mother, she said, well, she didn't know she was related until she was in her 20s.
Okay.
So what she did, she tried to shed some light on, Harriet Tubman
Right.
was not a bad person.
Right.
She cared about people.
Yes.
And so in order for you to write about her, you need to do a little more research, because the stories that I was told, yeah, she did take property, which slaves were property. She
Right.
did take that property, and she did
Mhm.
help them get freedom. She
Right.
said, you wouldn't be where you are today going to an all-white school
Right.
or any of those things if it hadn't been for this woman.
Okay.
So, okay, so my idea of this woman kind of changed a little bit, but I had to do the research. And so I had to go to one of my aunts Aunt Pauline. She is the oldest living descendant now, and she's 94. But before that, it was a lot earlier. She also talked about how Harriet Tubman was not a bad person.
Right.
So there was another person that grew up with Harriet Tubman. Our Aunt Lida. I knew her shortly before she passed away. Then, of course, I knew my grandmother.
Right.
I talked to my grandpa. All of them knew Harriet Tubman.
Yes.
And they were born in the they were, when I was asking questions about them, they were probably 70, 80 years old at the time.
Wow.
Mind you. Yeah. So I'm 67.
Okay.
So if you put the numbers together, it's like, okay, my grandfather and my Harriet Tubman would visit the house that my grandparents owned.
Okay.
And so the church that she attended, Thompson Memorial, was 2-3 doors away from their house.
Wow.
So Harriet Tubman would visit that home often and have they would say cup of tea or crumpets or something. To this day, I wish I had that report.
Right.
But I don't have that. But I can honestly say that by the time I got all the information I needed, I started admiring what she did. Because when someone tells you that you would be doing certain things if it hadn't been for someone that defied all odds of escaping. So I was like, I'm thankful. So as time went on and on, I started really liking her even more. But it wasn't until I was probably in my teens when I really started realizing why I need this memory of Harriet Tubman in my life. And it was because I went through some the domestic abuse in our household with my mom and my dad. My father was abusive. And then Harriet Tubman had a disability, and she was hit in the head by a master, and they called her stupid. As time went by, I started realizing that I had to keep going.
Okay. Now let me ask you this. What's kind of fascinating? Okay, how did your parent, you said your mother, how did she found out at 20, and why was it not until she was 20 that she found out about Harriet Tubman?
That's a very good question, yes. And it was because of the stories that they were also told. She was still considered a fugitive, even though she was free.
Right. Who told her? Who told your mother? How did she find out?
My mother found out through the same Aunt Lida.
Okay.
And my aunt, all of them, they found out, and it was like a secret. Harriet Tubman, yes, she was in Auburn, New York, but she would hide because they were still looking for this fugitive who was stealing their property. Slaves were considered property. So when my mother found out, it was something that was kept hush hush. They didn't talk about Harriet Tubman. And as time went by, when they started realizing that Blacks or African Americans or people who looked a little different, but it was also the Quakers. The Quakers was a separate type of religion that was pretty much all whites. These were the people who did not believe in slavery, and they're the ones that helped Harriet Tubman make it to freedom.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Now, do you think that your parents were trying to protect you from, I guess, once you would hear something like, okay, I'm related to let me get rid of Harriet Tubman. that now all of a sudden this responsibility is on you. This weight is on you. You're an innocent child before 9, and you're playing and you're dealing with a environment that is where there's only a few blacks, a few minorities, and you're just trying to cope through that. But and your parents are trying to let you and your siblings, enjoy childhood before bringing this on. Do you think they were trying to protect you, and at some point later on, they were intending to kind of let you know?
Um, that's also a good question. And I can only say what I believe because my mother, she didn't really tell me everything about Harriet Tubman that she knew. I had to go to someone else, another
Right.
relative.
Right.
So I guess from that standpoint, it was a hush hush story. It was
Right.
something that they just didn't talk about because
Right.
in Auburn,
Right.
The land that was given to Harriet Tubman, the Harriet Tubman home, all of those
Right.
things. My grandparents used to go there and do the flowering. My grandfather was the gardener. All of these things. So they didn't talk to their children. So my mother's parents didn't talk to their children about Harriet Tubman.
Right.
And so my mother, who didn't find out until she was in her 20s,
Right.
she didn't talk about it. It was only because of the secrecy and safety for them as well.
Right.
I don't really fully understand.
Yeah. Could it be possible too that that once and then say, as a child, you may say, well, I'm related to Harriet Tubman, children. And now you don't really know who's your friend, because you know what I mean? You don't, you know what I mean? Because now, this young man wants to talk to me, or this girl, white or black or Asian or whoever, wants to hang around me. You know what I mean? It seemed like it might have been probably when you got 18 or 20, possibly they felt, and they didn't want, and then maybe at that time, at that particular time, we know now that she's an American hero, an American patriot. But at that time, there was, people were trying to label her at that time in the wrong fashion. But now it's fashionable that they know there's no question she's an American hero to whites, blacks, everybody knows that she's an American hero. So I just think that maybe they were trying to protect you a little bit, maybe, and your siblings.
Yeah, I think it was protection in some at one point, but they didn't really know everything either.
Right, right.
They didn't know.
You were the inquisitive one. You were the one that I got to know now. I mean, you were that intellectual, inquisitive child that wanted to. Hey, I'm related to this person. I have to know more, and I'm not going to accept. And I like that. I'm not going to accept one line that's saying negative, and then once you learn more, then you want to learn more. You want to learn more, and you were just kind of like a child scholar about this.
In some ways, I kind of was, because I'll never forget the fact that because I asked so many questions,
right.
My third grade teacher thought I just didn't understand. And so I'll honestly say I failed third grade.
Okay.
And I was told that I was a crybaby.
Okay.
So a lot of those things are like, okay, so I made up for it when it was time to graduate. I graduated at 16. I skipped,
Yeah, I can sense that. I mean, and I want the audience to know this. I saw her at my church, in Athens, Georgia, for Sammy Church, and I'm going to tell you, you might want to hire her for speaking because she was amazing. Let me tell you, the room was blown away. So she is an outstanding speaker and very you know, really able to bring the story to life and really able to captivate an audience. So, and I'm still in awe of her and a fan. So, but let me ask you this right here. I guess, I mean, here I go with the reading, and we had talked before that may not be true. Some things may not be true, and that's I would tell anybody that is going to work and do anything with Harriet Tubman. I think you need to talk to the family to really get a better perspective and not just third party information. If you're lucky to meet them, if you're fortunate to meet them, her other family members, I guess. So this was she and your mother and father said, and other relatives said that you're here because of Harriet Tubman. So your family, or her sister, brother, whoever it was, that was your relative, your direct relative, right next to, which she is your direct relative as well. She actually went back and brought that person to freedom. That's your relative. Is that correct?
Most definitely. She loved her family that much that when on December 6th, 1849,
Right.
that's when she stepped into Philadelphia and got a taste of what that freedom was like.
Right.
So she worked for a while there, and then she also changed her name from Araminta to Harriet.
Okay.
Okay, that was her given name at birth, Araminta, but her mother also was named Harry, but they called her Rit.
Okay.
So she loved her mother that much that she wanted to be like her.
Yes.
Strong and responsible mother. So what she did, she went on ahead and changed her name in Philadelphia with William Still. And then after that, she said, I've got to go back and get my family because I'm working and I'm getting money. I'm getting paid. So she was able to save some. Of course, there wasn't a lot, but
right.
She was able to save some to go back and make those trips.
Right.
No.
So she took, wait, you're saying that she, and so that people understand this, I want to understand this as well as an outsider here, that she would work and she took her own money. She didn't try to ask people, well, maybe but I'm just saying, first and foremost, she took her own money in order to go back and use her own money to go back and try to bring family members, friends, and other people that were around.
Out of captivity. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
She just believed, I mean, they had the Underground Railroad. Now, I must say, many people have already made it through the Underground and made it to freedom. But of all those that made it through the Underground, Harriet Tubman was the one that went back and made, some people say 13 trips and others say 19. And I'm going by what she said, 19 trips. She may not have been able to read or write, but she still had that knowledge of what one was like and what two was like and so forth. We can only go by, family especially, can only really go by what she had in her very first book that was written by Sarah Bradford. Okay. Sarah Bradford wrote Harriet Tubman's story on her when she was close to being on her deathbed. Wow. Okay. So she died at the age of 92. But this book was supposed to help raise money for the Harriet Tubman Home for the Aged. Okay. Because she did not have the funding. Harriet Tubman was poor. Okay. Because whatever she had, it was always given to someone else. Right. And I can honestly say, I don't think of myself as being poor. Right. But I do think of myself as a person who does the very same thing. I give my last. I don't live in a mansion. I don't live, I don't own a whole lot of anything. I don't own anything really. I'm still making car payments. But I'm just saying that I have the same type of mentality in many ways that my great aunt had. Right. And my mother would say things like, I was picky. I
Right.
was different,
Right.
and that was only because I could.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this real quick with her. Now, she was, some say 5. Was she, how tall was she actually? I mean, based on what the family knows, not outsiders, because, they may
She was
be,
very short. She was petite. She was 4'11".
okay. Okay.
And she was strong, a very
Right.
strong woman, strong as an ox, as
Right.
some people may have said. She cut timber. She worked with ox. I mean, now I'm just going to say fast forward to 21st century.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that I know that I would not be trying to do.
Right.
So my goal is with the Harriet Tubman Learning Center, the
Okay.
best that we can do is to continue her legacy, and that is through teaching them robotics and science and STEM and arts. And then we have teachers that come in, and I don't teach all of that.
Okay.
I'm like the vessel that is putting all of this together, and we're, so this could be more jobs and people that want to help the underserved and so forth. And so that's where we are, because she became an American hero, certainly.
Yes. Yes.
She was an abolitionist and
Yes.
political activist in some ways, who
Right.
risked her freedom and safety to protect others. She knew
Right.
it was wrong, and so that's what she did.
Yes. Well, let me ask you this right here. I mean, I guess this is a question I think a lot of people, and I try to ask questions from the standpoint sometimes of what I think the general public would want to know with respect. When she went to go and try to bring people back out of slavery, did she ever? Because I know that she had the injury. Did she ever pass out? And was there a fear by even her? You think that I may pass out and I may get killed if I don't wake up, or you know what I mean, because of her injury?
Now, the only thing I can tell you is what we've been told with her stories, and that is that because she was hitting in her head, she ended up with a coma. She was in a coma for a while. She came out of that coma and was able to still do what she felt was her mission and her purpose. I believe her purpose was to go back and get others. But at the same time, after being hit in the head, she had something which you would call narcolepsy, where she had a problem. She could be talking to you and just fall asleep.
Wow.
So while she was running away or helping others escape, she would fall asleep and the other slaves would just let her be. It could be a 30-minute fall asleep. It could be 90 minutes. It could be, however, when she woke up, and this is based on some of the stories that were passed on, when she woke up, she would just continue from where she left off.
Wow.
So she would wake up and then she'd have dreams.
Okay.
And through those dreams, with her connection with God,
Right.
He was her vessel as well. He would let her know, no, you're not going to go this way. You got to go this way to evade being catched or being caught by the masters or the bounty hunters or the people that were out to get her. So she would, I can say that she never got caught.
Right.
Even with that disability. And it's so funny because I have received letters from other people. One letter, I'm not going to read them, but I will just say that one letter is from a young lady who said that she was autistic.
Okay.
And she's been told that she was stupid.
Okay.
And so after talking with her, she said, I listened to what you said, how you said that you believe people can learn above and other things. She said, my memory is so bad, so I'll try to remember. And she said that you were talking about this learning center.
Right.
Then I heard you say that to speak up, if you feel something isn't right, you said other things too. But
Mhm.
she would say that I was told that I'm not going to amount to anything because my dream was to become a PSW at a nursing home. And she
Mhm.
said, so I'm autistic. But you also said to me that Harriet Tubman was hit in the head too. She
Right.
was not, she was never diagnosed as being autistic, but she
Mhm.
was diagnosed as having these sleeping episodes. And so it was her disability. And so she said that I wanted to thank you because now I know that I can do all things if I just try. I don't have to give up just because other people say I can't. But she says that I have to keep going.
That's amazing. And I'm thinking, let me go two things here. Number
Mhm.
one, and you already stated this, but I think we have to just put the light on it again. Is that even though she fell asleep certain times during rescue missions, she was never called. And this another thing, the slaves trusted her that much, not to try to wake her up, not to disturb her. We feel we're out here, and this lady knows what she's doing, and she never, she was successful and went on. That's just amazing.
Yeah, she would dress in disguises. How would
Mhm.
she know that she needed to get a disguise? Through her dreams. Some of her stories were she dressed in the disguise like a man,
Mhm.
and she had to go. Um, she was on one of her missions with some of the slaves, and she had wear what you would call chickens in the back. And so in order to also get past some of the masters, the last thing they wanted to do was chase behind a bunch of chickens, so they let her alone. But
Mhm.
she was dressed as a man.
Right.
So the chickens would run all over the place, and she's out there chasing the chickens, and so she didn't have time to talk or anything like that. But that's just how intelligent she was. So for
Yes.
anyone that says I can't just change that around and say, yes, I can if you try. But that's just how determined she was to leave that legacy behind, because now that as a descendant or a relative of Harriet Tubman, for anyone out there who believes they can't do something, if you don't give it a try, then you will never succeed in anything.
That's true. And I think of her too. Just the thought of is that she might have been one of America's first person of color to integrate. And I'm saying when I say integrate, that she was able to communicate with these well-educated people that maybe the Quakers or the Presbyterian Church or Reformed Presbyterian Church, United Methodist. She was able to with the legendary Jim Brown assisting him. She was, I mean, that is commendable. Here's a person who was a slave, who could not read, but I guess she was able to speak. We could tell she was a great speaker, and she was able to get along with people that were not of her race,
Mhm.
that were free men and women, and in another area of the country. So I think that's very and able to accomplish a lot. I mean, that's kind of fascinating. I mean, I'm just thinking that's very fascinating how she was able to get along with different people of different races, and 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 I think throughout her life, what I saw is, and I could be wrong, but people always were there. She was not a person that was, you know, going out asking for stuff all the time, but people just recognize her as somebody who's genuine, that's trying to help others, and at the right time, people will come along and help her, even with legislation for different
That's
things. She
true.
always
And her intelligence was way beyond that. And for example, Harriet Tubman organized for enslaved people that they should leave on Saturdays, Saturday evenings, and because the newspapers were not printed on Sundays. So there's no ad in the newspaper that would even confirm there was a runaway and that we needed to, let people know that some more slaves have been taken away. So they wouldn't know until Monday. By then, she's long gone.
Wow.
So there were ads, even the people that owned her, there were ads about her, that she was enslaved and that she needed to be caught. So yeah, there's just so much about her.
I know, and I think about, okay, they had some act that came out that was trying to stop you from being in the North and still get you and bring you back. So but so then she went to Canada and carried people to Canada. Does anybody, I guess, in your family, did she ever talk, or anybody found out where was this confidence, this bravery, this okay, well, I could have been in Pennsylvania, but now, okay, there's a law, so now that shows her intelligence. Now we're going to have to take you to Canada. I mean, how can we really account for her bravery and new territory? And I mean, she's international. She goes to Canada, another country. I mean, it's not just America. She went to Canada, another country, and there she's praised, So how do you account for this bravery and this determination and just coming under nerves, no fear, I have something to do here?
It was her mission, and they called her, at times, she was considered to be the Moses of her people, because not only even though she wasn't able to read or write, but that common sense and that intelligence that she had was way beyond that of what a slave should know. Mm-hmm. So with the fact that she had the narcolepsy, or that she would fall asleep, she had those dreams. And God was the center of her life. She would not make any moves, but she knew the outside. Growing up, she knew all about the environment. She knew, she followed the North Star. There's a lot that she did that I couldn't even begin to say that I know everything, because I don't.
Right.
I'm finding more information. I still do my research. I still, I compare certain things like this, but I also always go back to those people that knew her, who had information.
Right.
Rather than what some people will tell. They'll change her story all the time. Some say she rode a bike. Some say that she would jump off a bridge. I mean, even to a point where, okay, here's the logic behind it. The logic is, if you had narcolepsy and you fall asleep, why are you going to jump off? Would you jump off a bridge? Well, I'm just saying there's stories all out there that are different than from what we were told. If she did jump off a bridge, we were never told that. Yeah. Now, I do know that she walked through water that was all the way up to her neck to get to the freedom, to get to get others. I do know that she had two brothers that were going to go with her, that needed to seek the freedom, who turned around and went back. Right. And see, a lot of times back then, from what I was told, is that many people did not know they were slaves. Wow. They didn't know anything better. Right.
Do you think some people were actually, comfortable? Yeah, but I mean, I think about Booker T. Washington, how up from slavery or whatever, and it was as if they, yeah, they were in slavery, but it was as if they were not in slavery, but yet and still they were in slavery. But
Mhm.
but I guess in her case, I think that she was, probably definitely had a high IQ. That she, okay, you know, the fact she was married to a, was she married to a free man one time?
Okay, so yes, John Tubman, her husband, was a free man,
Right.
but he he defied her in several ways. When
Okay.
she wanted to escape,
Mhm.
John, because he was free, but he was, I guess, the kind of person that, oh, I'm gonna let my master know, where
Yeah.
you going, And so
Yeah.
she told him that she wanted to run away.
Right.
And her husband at the time
Mhm.
told,
Wow.
but she left on her own.
Right.
And when she left on her own and she came back
Yeah.
for her husband, because now
Yeah.
I'm a free woman,
Right.
you're my husband.
Right.
And Mr. Tubman, he's like, I ain't waiting for you. Okay, so
Mhm.
he remarried
Right.
someone else. I'm like, okay, I didn't understand. How is that you can marry one person and then turn right around and marry someone else without divorce or without whatever? But
Right.
I always
Well,
questioned that. I always questioned how that was done,
right.
but
Right.
I don't think they were recorded marriage
Right.
time.
Right.
Um, but
Well,
she
I
did
mean,
get married a second time
right.
to Nelson Davis,
Right.
um, who had an illness, who was basically, and he was much younger than her,
Okay.
because her common sense, her smartness and everything, she could only, anyways, Nelson Davis, she never switched her name,
Right.
Harriet Davis. She
Right.
still Tubman,
Right.
and hyphenated Davis.
Right. Right. Well,
So
what came to mind is that that first husband was content, and but maybe he was free and maybe it was okay for him. But I think that she understood that if we had kids, those kids would be slaves. And she was not, this might have been nice. I have somebody to talk to about my issues or whatever, but it was not, she wanted full emancipation. She wanted freedom and at all costs. And if she was not willing to play along and say, well, oh, okay, I'm married, this is okay, this is not that bad. I do, and I have some skills and I can work or whatever. She was determined to be free and in turn to free other people. So I mean, she was going for a higher goal. I think that he was limited in his mindset, and basically he was the slave, if you will, in that environment. And she became free even before she became free when she ran, and she was of a higher mindset than even the free man, if you will, because she wanted freedom for herself and for others around her and family. So I mean, she was on a higher level. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here too, is that with the second husband, I think later on, because he fought in the war, that eventually, it took a long time, but eventually she got his retirement pension or
well,
something.
she received his pension,
Right.
and that was $20 a month. Now,
Right.
Harriet Tubman was never given, for the time that she served in the war, the Civil
Right.
War, from the time that she served as a nurse,
Right.
nursing the military, the Black soldiers, coming up with her own remedies, because they were not given medicines and things like
Right.
that. So she would concoct all kinds of things that actually healed.
Right.
But no, she never received her pension.
And the thing I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that they were willing to pay her something, but I think some other blacks got upset. And so she, what I heard from what I read, that she said, okay, well, I don't want to cause any problems. She didn't accept the money because she didn't want confusion. But yet still she went home and baked cakes or whatever and was entrepreneur and making money that way. And I think, you know, we from what you're telling me, from what I'm understanding, what the publisher understand, when she made money, she was doing it to help other people. It wasn't just for her self gain. She was probably thinking of how can I help someone else.
That's true, and I've never heard where she turned down any money.
Right.
And I say that only because at one point she went to the Senator Stewart.
Okay.
Told him that God told me that you were going to give me $20.
Okay.
And Stewart said to her, he didn't tell me, you know. So out of her stubbornness,
Right.
she sat and she waited and waited. She was not going to leave without that $20.
Right.
And she fell asleep, and Senator Stewart still saw that she was still there, and he ended up, just so she could leave, he gave her more than the $20. And I don't really know exactly how much he ended up leaving with, but that is one of the stories that was told.
Right.
That she was not going to leave without it because she needed that money.
Yeah. And when she, and excuse me, I read that, and here it goes, me and my reading. Oh boy. What is it? Oh my goodness. So, but she was, I think they spoke of her being the first woman in the Civil War to go out with a regiment or something, something to that effect. And they went to some plantation and they freed like maybe 170 people, liberated or whatever you want to say. They, you know, and she would.
One of the things that we were told is that, yes, you certainly did go out with the regiment. And once they served, they became free men. From what I've been told, it's been up to 800 soldiers who were part of that regiment. So she was brought in to be the nurse for these soldiers. And so she helped them as well. But I can only say that there's so many stories you don't know which one is true or false.
Right.
But based on some of the stories that were passed on, that she was a part of the Civil War. And one of the things that these slaves were supposed to be granted was freedom. Right.
And what about I mean, we all hear that when before the war and she was going on her missions, that if slaves got scared or became scared, that she was willing to, I mean, out of safety for everybody else, if you were going to think you were going to leave and go back and tell that she was ready and willing. She never did, but she was ready and willing to, she would have to shoot somebody or to stop them from doing that.
Well, that was part of the fear that she would instill in them. But one of the things she could honestly say is that I never lost a passenger. So if she can say that I never lost a passenger, that means she never shot them. Right. Also, they were considered, if you looked at some of the terminology that they used, it was based on, if they were on a train, they were considered baggage. They were considered passengers. So that was, in layman's term, that's some of the language that they would use. And the reason why they called her the conductor.
Right.
Because back then they never put it together. So back then, the language that was used, because they had just really started using the trains for people to ride as passengers. And so they use that type of terminology.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah. And then I'm thinking, I'm going here because I just want to point this out for people. That here we go with the integration point again, and I think people came to her because of her achievements to be part of the women's movement for voting, suffrage movement. That was one, I think one time she spoke, I never lost a passenger, but I'm just saying people reached out to her. They saw her as such a symbol of progress and progression. Of progression, that they wanted her to be a part of that, and she was a part of that movement for women. And that's of all races. That's not just Black women. That's of white, all races for their
Susan B. Anthony, these are well-known people back then. Queen Elizabeth acknowledged her. A lot of people have acknowledged her, I guess, because of her becoming an icon.
Right.
And it's because she never gave up. She never quit. She never got caught. And she was able to do all of these things and make all of these numerous trips back and forth. It's like, wow, she was on a mission.
Right.
And as far as she was concerned, her mission and her passion was, I got to go back and get some more. Some people say she made 7 trips. Some people say she made 11, 13. The numbers are so different. But then Harriet Tubman says she made 19. Then I wasn't there.
Right.
And then another woman who supposedly did her research.
Right.
She said that she went to the records,
right,
where they would have all the records listed. And I'm like, okay, what records are you talking about? My aunt couldn't read nor write. But on top of that, do you think or do you believe that because she's going to escape, she's going to go and put it on record?
Right.
Write it with her pen.
Right.
I'm about to leave on January 1st.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want everybody to know I'm taking about 6 other slaves with me that will include my family.
Right.
So look at the logic behind that.
Right.
Where did you go to get those records?
Right.
And what makes it so true?
Right.
The other thing too is, yes, she made a lot of trips from Maryland to Philadelphia or to Canada.
Right.
And so they're counting her trips.
Right.
But who's to say that all of her trips were from Maryland?
Right.
Wherever. Could it have been where she made it halfway and she saw a lot of and turned around?
Right.
Because just remember that when she's going back, she's not going back with people.
Right.
She's going back making this trip on her own.
Right.
On foot.
Right.
So when she says I made 19 trips, I gotta believe her. Because they could have been halfway trips.
Right.
Or they could have, because all these people she made,
and under the stress,
to see that, yes.
Yeah, and we say under the stress that she was, and strain that she was. I mean, and what I was saying earlier, like you said, when you jump off into the water, I'm trying to let people
imagine it, right?
Yeah, I'm a regular person and a male, okay, and I might not have been as great. I mean, as courageous and I'm just saying maybe I would
rebel-like.
Yeah, I'm just trying to let people understand that, and then let me go here. And I think people have to understand this, that in this ironic thing here on this particular point, that she created a old folks home and gave that to the church,
AME
AME church, whatever. And eventually she ended up in it. But what was, and she cared for her parents, elderly parents. Has anybody talked about how did she come up with that, to be that thoughtful to do that?
Well, I think, and I can only go by my perspective and what I've been told. A lot of that is because her parents were elderly at the time.
Right, right.
So the land she was giving acreage land
Right.
in Auburn, New York,
Right.
where they built the Harriet Tubman Home for the Aged.
Okay.
And so now it is part of a museum. It is part of the national parks. But before that, the Home for the Aged was to take care of senior citizens.
Right.
Now she was becoming one as well because she didn't pass away until she was in her 90s.
Right.
So her parents obviously were older than her.
Right.
So they were senior citizens as well. So in order to keep that property up and running, her thing was to make sure that she could raise funding for that. And so Sarah Bradford, who helped write the book with her, that was what she was using to raise money to keep the home opened. What she ended up doing was she deeded the Home for the Aged over to the AME church.
Right.
Her hope was that they would not charge because, she died a poor woman, so she wasn't rich because of that.
Right.
It was not doing that. But she was unhappy from what we were told because AME decided to charge.
Right.
No matter what. Now, these are people back in the day who didn't have the money, who didn't have the means. They're old. And even at that time, they didn't have what you would call now Medicare or any type of help.
Right.
So I just never understood that, but she was very upset.
Right.
That, and so now AME still has that property.
Right.
Well, they're running it now because it has been given, or it was sold to the national parks where they received money, but descendants didn't get it done.
Okay. Wow. Okay. But you said that book that she allowed
Sarah Bradford.
Right, to talk, that she allowed this to happen. That book, that some of the monies from that, royalties from that they were being used to fund that the old folks home.
Exactly. And there are people who are saying that in that book there was fabrication, pretty much lies.
Okay. Well, you're gonna always have people that I think some people can't even conceptualize or just understand, they want to take away from the greatness of this person. So you're always going to have somebody that just, a lot of people just, and some people can't deal with the truth. What's that movie where the guy said what he said? He said something about you can't handle the truth. Some people can't handle the truth. And she did so many great things, and some people just, for whatever reason, for whatever purposes, could not and cannot to this day handle that this woman was so given and was so smart and was doing so many great things. But let me turn it here, and I think that people need to get it, because this connects you with everything and everything. Can you tell us, and you did give us one letter about the lady that was talking about she was inspired by Harriet Tubman, and I think you shared with me a little bit, a few more individuals that have called in to you or wrote to you, and I think the public would be fascinated, as I was, of her influence even up to this day. Of you don't have to read, of course not, but just tell us a little bit about some of the people that may have called and were inspired by her, and just kind of give people a feel of her, you know, of her influence even to.
Well, I can say that I get a lot of people who are sending me letters or emails because they go through the website at harriettubmanlearningcenter.org. A lot of them are saying things like, I think we're related. I did my DNA and your name pops up and here's my phone number. Let's talk. And one of the things we're doing now is for next year in July, we're going to be celebrating the Harriet Tubman Descendants reunion in Auburn, New York.
Yes.
And so there will be family members that we don't know that have been born to some of Harriet Tubman's family, sisters, brothers, nieces, and so forth. And so I just make it clear that Harriet Tubman never had any children with John or Nelson. They adopted a daughter, but those are some of the things that I've received. I've even received, you know, things like they are happy that we're continuing the legacy and some of the things that we are doing. And they're happy about the Harriet Tubman Learning Center, that we're continuing her legacy through that. So most of those letters are, you know, praising some of the work that I'm doing. But right now, we're not doing that at this time. And COVID is the reason. Yes. But in the meantime, the places that we're trying to open up, there are other places that want, but we still need to get the funding to reopen. So that's important, that, you know, if there's people that can write those large checks, because it will be a mammoth size of money that we're going to be able to do that. Right now, I'm in the same, I can't do it on my own.
Let me ask you this, because I mean, it's going to happen. I really feel that as Christian, it's going to happen. People will come along. There's, you know, there's some organizations and stuff, and we're, you know, but I mean, you know, one big one, we're not going to mention the name. They may not want that out, but there may be a group that will, you know, help. I mean, I don't want to, you know, but let me say this. I don't lose my train of thought. What, when you were, you know, if fully operating, what joy did you get from seeing kids, you know, being touched and influenced? And I'm going to say that I'm saying by learning. What did it bring tears to your eyes when you saw kids come in and you were trying to help them and you saw things progressing in the right direction? What kind of feeling did it give you?
Well, first of all, the feeling was that not only am I making my mom happy, but I'm also making my great aunt happy. I had children that were, and we worked with the schools. So it wasn't that, you know, if you're already on the honor roll, do you need the Harriet Tubman Learning Center? Possibly, because there's always something that you may be smart in or whatever. But so we were very diverse. We had Asian, we had African American, we had white. All of them came to the Learning Center. We didn't have it wasn't large. It was small because we were limited to space. And so when what we did, we worked with the social workers at the school. They would send us children who are behind, children who had some disabilities, including attention deficit, PTSD, or they're going through some things at home, and they're not picking up on certain. We had tutors and mentors and people that would talk with the kids. We took them on field trips. It was always sponsored by someone else. So we would have bus loads and have other groups that would join us as well. So we would, but the joy that I got out of it was, I'll never forget, we had one, you know, several, but I'm just going to point out one student who was always getting in fights. He's mixed. His father is His father is Italian and his mother is Haitian.
Okay.
So he was always getting into fights.
Right.
And so he came to the learning center, and I'm going to tell you about two.
Okay.
He would come to the learning center and just be happy that someone is giving him the attention that he needed. He would pick up things so fast. It was like, okay, why is it that you're a troubled child? He says, I'm always getting into fights. I don't start them, but I will finish them. And okay, so here at the Learning Center, we don't authenticate fighting.
Right.
You are very intelligent. We found out that he was one of the smartest kids.
Wow.
Yeah. So one of the things he said was just before we had shut down, he says, and he was an 8th grader at the time. He is 10th grade now.
Right, right.
You know, he has sent me little notes and little messages. We miss you and that kind of stuff. But he said that when he gets a position, he loved the youth entrepreneurship program, and he was going to make sure that he came back and gave back. And then, and that was financially and with his knowledge. Then, you know, it's always good to have someone that comes back who's gone through it. Then we had this other kid that came in that would always wear the big headphones and a hood on his head. And it was almost like he was not there to listen or anything. So one of the things that he would do, first class, we let him get away with it. We would ask him to take them off because you can't hear. And he kind of take it off and then put it back on, not listening. So the second time he came, doing the same thing. And we said to him, if you really want to be a part of the Learning Center, you're going to have to join all of us in the same way. You have to take the headphones off. And how about taking that hoodie off? And, yes. And we let him know, you're such a handsome young man and you're hiding that. Right. You know, he liked those compliments. Okay. So he ended up taking them off and everything. And I would, you know, I would not direct anything to him, but I would say, the young men that are coming here, we want you guys to become leaders. Yes. And so what we're going to be doing is offering some special classes just for the kids or just for the students who want to become leaders.
Right.
Now, and I said, I'm going to pass out a form. And if you want to become a leader, there's certain things, certain rules you have to follow. He came back, of course, the one, the child that, most of the boys, they all want to become leaders. Mm-hmm. And we would have special classes where they would build things together. So it's team building. I mean, they would get the arguments and want to fight with each other. Right. And I'm like, this is not what we're all about. So they built a raft. They would go on field trips where they learn about robotics. And I have a nephew who also is a robot builder. And so they would go on some of those classes, and it would be a special group of young boys that would go there. So every single one of them, they receive certificates of you know, where they certificates of completion. And then, but here we are now, we're missing out on getting these young kids back in. Right. So we're troubled because for me, it's like my mind is just all over the place. It's like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. This is my mission. This is my purpose. How do I do that? Because even at one point we were letting them come to my home. And then when COVID really started getting really bad, we had to stop that.
Right. Well,
so, yeah, we just
I'm seeing the passion. I'm sure the audience is seeing the love and seeing the one-on-one connection that you had and influence, and how you really changed mindsets for the positive. And I wanted just a few more things. I don't know, maybe another time, another we just got started, so we kind of stopped it this time. It was so interesting, more than I thought. It was just, this thing was organic. Like I said, I'm organic, and this thing was just so organic and so interesting. But you had shared, again, you said that different people wrote in, and they would be appreciative of what you're doing, and like you shared, the one girl that had the autism, and it impacted her
inspired, yes.
Yeah, and you had other people, I think, that you mentioned. So I want Alice to know that this is kind of commonplace, that she has people probably from all over the United States, could be all over the world, that are chiming in, letting her know what the learning center means to them, even if they're maybe grown up or whatever. It's just the fact of it, to help. And well, let's go here. Can you recall what year that Harriet Tubman had her stamp? That's amazing. A stamp in the mail. Can you recall that?
No, I don't know exactly when that stamp was, because it was out. It was very short-lived.
Right. But it was out. It was out.
It was a stamp. They had her picture on it and everything. And so many things become obsolete.
Right.
And that's what happened with that. I do remember that when they talked about the $20 bill.
Right.
They came up with a stamp just that had her face on it.
Right.
So they would put the stamp on the $20 bill.
Right.
And
well,
it was just, yeah.
Go ahead.
So I'm just saying that on that $20 bill, it was to replace the person that was on that $20 bill.
Right.
And I don't even repeat the name.
Right. Well, let me say this, is that I'm my little research with him, I'm hearing so that since, and I mean, who can say, since Biden is in office, that they want to restart that back up. And I think that would actually really help with getting a lot of, voters, especially Black African American women voters.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is
so
true.
I mean, that would benefit him greatly. So I heard that it's going to be started back. They're going to start back up. So it is. Yeah.
And like I said, that I didn't get the stamp. So I'm just letting everybody know I didn't get the stamp.
Yeah.
But you can deface. You can take the stamp and you put Harriet Tubman's face. It would come in black. Right. And of course you would be replacing Mr. Jackson.
Right. And and I mean, we talked about, but can we say about the movie, even though I mean I agree with, but it's just there may be a positive aspect about the movie that came out, that not stuff behind it, things that might have should have happened that we talked about, but that it came out. I think it was pretty much a success somewhat, and it showcased her, and you saw her. I mean, do you think that was good from that angle? Maybe it should have been more involvement from the family. Family should have, some more things should have happened.
Yeah, okay, let me just say this. There are a lot of family members,
right,
that will speak up and yay, they will say yes. For me, if you're not going to write the truth, then you're not going to get my approval.
Right.
So there are some people out there who are family members,
right,
and will work with whoever as long as there's some green involved. For me, I'm not going to sign on something that I disagree with, or disagree with what my story is. Now, if you're talking about the Harriet movie that was out, I saw it twice.
Okay.
And speaking with my mother and my Aunt Pauline, both of them felt that they're really not telling Harriet Tubman's story as it should be.
Okay.
because the movie starts with Harriet Tubman already married to John Tubman. So with all this
Okay.
knowledge,
Right.
all this knowledge she gained from a baby all the way up to that point,
Right.
it didn't show that.
Right.
But then it also ended
Mm-hmm.
where she ended up at the Seward home,
Right.
which is in Auburn, New York.
Mm-hmm.
But what about what she did after that?
Right. Right.
As the abolitionist, as the
Right.
the person who spoke about her story. And I mean, there's so much that was missing
Right.
that I could not, you know, our goal is that we would love to be able to do the true story where it starts in Africa with
Right.
with Harriet Tubman's grandmother Modesty.
Right.
You know, what was it like for women on the ship coming
Right.
from their home where they are already free?
Right.
They're free
Right.
to roam, to go shopping, do whatever they want to do.
Right.
They have their customs,
Right.
which are different. But then
Right.
once they're caught
Right.
and put on that ship, how were they treated on those ships?
Right. Right.
Okay, they're on those ships for 3 months. You know, you can also look at even El Camino Cave. They have to wait for a ship to come and get them. So you've got them stockpiled like they're just animals.
Right. Right. Right.
You know, my mother went to Ghana, and that's one of the things that we're working on for next year, to take a group of family members and friends to Ghana so we can go through that castle and get a feel of what it was like. So there's feces, there's urination, and people, women having certain things monthly and so forth, where they weren't able to clean up or anything. They were just a plain mess. And that's how they were treated. They were treated like that when they get on those ships. You know, John Green, who was the master, who also had Modesty as one of his proteges, or one of his persons that he was going to take advantage of. And she ends up with Harriet Tubman's mother, Rita, who was born in Maryland. While on the ship, she became impregnated by John Green. So, of course, you know, slaves took their master's last name. That's where the Green came about.
Right.
So
well, my point that I wanted to say, and then I think we got a lot this time around. Maybe we'll do another one, and it was so exciting. But I just wanted to throw in the light. Of course, there was, like you said, a lot of things that were not accurate in that movie, but I think it's a start. And the only thing I'm saying is I suspect that there's going to be many more movies in different forms, and who knows? I'm looking. Part of this show is about inspiration, so I look also for one day that she has a I don't know if it could a holiday, national holiday. I mean, it's just a recognition, if you will, about her. Because
let me just say that on March 10th, that is the day of her death.
Okay.
Okay, so on March 10th, we celebrate Harriet Tubman Day.
Okay.
And it was George Bush Sr. who signed that document that they would recognize Harriet Tubman Day on March 10th. Okay. So for here in Georgia, every year we have to go to the governor to get a proclamation claiming March 10th as Harriet Tubman Day. Now, New York State does that. There's a few states who actually acknowledge Harriet Tubman Day as a holiday. And the reason why they use the March 10th, because no one actually knows her birth date. Some people say it was 1820, others say 1822. We've always gone by 1820 because of the fact that that's what we were told. And some of the history, but other people who don't look like me
Right,
did their research and made it 1822. So
right,
next year, 2022,
right.
is considered to be 200 years,
Okay,
bicentennial of
okay,
her birth.
okay, okay.
Now,
Well,
we don't know the month, we don't know the year,
right,
but we're going along with it. And so descendants will be gathering in Auburn, New York in
mm,
July 22nd to the 24th.
right,
And people that want information or might want to be invited,
mm,
you can go to my website or
mm,
send me an email and let me know, and I'll try to see what I can do.
mm,
Because it is going to be a limited guest list.
right,
But we're hoping that we can get people to help us get the Harriet Tubman Learning Center reopened. And
right,
so we do need funding for that.
right,
And if we're going to do 4 states, um, that's our goal. It's
right,
needed.
right,
And, and,
right,
and, they talk about this critical thinking and all of those kind of things. That's
mm,
important.
right, right,
And, there's a lot of people who are against it, but
right,
HTLC, that's the short name for Harriet Tubman Learning Center, will
right.
be making sure that that critical um, teaching is part of HTLC.
Okay. Well, I think let me just say this. I I think that the funding, we look for the funding to come through. And I think the critical, and I think the word, yeah, I'm a songwriter, I'm a book author. So the wording, because some people miss not, I mean, that don't mean good or saying critical. I think truthful, clear cut understanding.
History,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. I'm gonna say truthful, clear cut understanding of history. Just leave it there because I don't want to use critical. I'm just saying myself because I don't want to muddy the waters. Have other people had. We just want the people to know what happened, and from there they can, assess.
They can make their own decisions.
Making their own decision. So we went. So when so I just personally, I'm gonna take the critical off and just say understanding of what happened. And there is no doubt about it at this particular point in time. Harriet Tubman is an American hero. She's an American patriot. And she's known all over the world. As you said, the Queen recognized her. Canada, all the United States now, you educated me on the spot about that there is a day that is recognized to her. So I'm learning people too.
We also celebrate December 6th
Right.
as Freedom Day.
Okay. December 6th.
That's the day that Harriet Tubman crossed over into Philadelphia and obtained her freedom there. So those are 2 days.
Right.
So we always do a celebration for March 10th.
Right.
I went to Philadelphia to do the grand, because they just started doing the December 6th.
Right.
And so we want people to know that Freedom Day is important.
Right.
As well as Harriet Tubman Day.
Absolutely. And I want to say that I'm learning in real time. And everybody's learning. I'm being taught and educated on the spot in real time here by this distinguished individual. So I want to say to everybody, we're going to stop it here. Who knows? Maybe I can sway her to come back another time at her liking. But I want to say that I hope that you today, wherever where you heard it from, a descendant. There may be a project, and I think it will be coming out. We won't go into the details on that. We do know that the book is coming. I think a project is coming for sure. I think funding is coming, but I wanted to say also using this platform, definitely we'll put her information in the body of this video. And of course, I will have her, set up that she interviews other people, and she has other people that she's interviewing with outside of my help. Okay. So the word is going to get out, but we definitely want you to try to see the greatness of what's going on. Send funding for this great cause, and be a part of the solution, and give and be positive and learn as I'm learning on the spot you see here. So I really appreciate, you know, you honoring this program and giving us an opportunity to have a word with you, to speak with you. And I think, you know, in real time, I was learning. I'm very appreciative. I'm this platform, of course, we're appreciative, and my LinkedIn followers and different people, they're going to be appreciative. And possibly in the future, at the right time, we may definitely have you back one or two, several more times. Definitely we'll get you out to other people. And again, I'm going to urge people to, of all walks of life, to contribute and be a part of the solution, because this is positive. And Harriet Tubman is an American hero, and she embodies positivity. And that's what this is about. And this distinguished individual, a relative, as you know, embodies that as well. So we are so honored and blessed to have her today, and we'll stop here. It's kind of a cliffhanger, you know what I'm saying? And because it's like, oh, I want more. And I want more, and you do want more. So that just shows you the power of her ability to communicate with you and kind of get you started. And hopefully you'll go out there and research more. I mean, at some point she may have several books that you can research that she's written or whatever, and the family members have written or whatever, that can give you the truth, clear understanding of Harriet Tubman and of their lives as well, that they're doing in this learning center, which is heaven sent. And that's an understatement. So
let me just say this and close with it. I want to thank you, Eric, for having me on your show, and just let everyone know that you're going to be a part of this history, because everyone that donates will, their name and everything will be listed on at all the schools. So if you live in Atlanta area, or if you live in the DC area, or even Bridgeport, Connecticut, or even Connecticut by itself, or New York, we're looking for everyone to donate toward those schools so we can get them open. And we appreciate everything that Eric is doing. He's working with several organizations trying to help us get the funding. Right now we are at ground zero. And this is the first time that I've actually spoken about it openly, but moving forward, that's what I'm going to be doing. And one of the other things that we're going to be doing is, because of COVID, I have an opportunity to help raise money through obtaining these, there are things that you can purchase for your home that helps freshen your home and helps keeps that germ and everything out of your home. So there's more information that will be coming. I don't have it all right now, but I just want people to know that I'm going to have two in my house, one downstairs and one upstairs, because instead of having to run around the house spraying Lysol or whatever, it's an automatic cleanser. So for the air. But anyways, that's where we are right now. And so thank you. And we appreciate all that you're doing, and keep going.
Yes. And let me just give you the last word again, and just tell us where they can reach. We'll have this in the body of the video, but where can they reach out to you? And I'm so inspired by you. Is there anything you want to say to inspire those that need to be inspired?
I want everyone to know that regardless of what your disability is, if there is one, PTSD, autism, you name it, you can learn some, and there are hidden talents. We have found out that not all the smart people graduate from high school. There's people out there like Edison and CERN. They went to 3rd, 4th, 5th grade and came out with great discoveries. So that's what we try to do. We would like to work with young children, and we're even looking at adults who have not achieved what they need to. So our goal is to do as much as we can. We're going to be trying to open up in 4 different states total, but there are others who have an interest, put it that way. So we want everyone to know you can reach me at HarrietTubmanLearningCenter.org. You can go to daniels.rita09@gmail. That's my Gmail. But anything you send to the business, Rita at HarrietTubmanLearningCenter.org or info@HarrietTubmanLearningCenter.org. And then last but not least, my phone number, 678-761-0040.
Okay, so she's very transparent and trying to let people have an opportunity to reach out and be positive and do it as she is. And again, we thank you. And we're going to end this particular show, American Authors and Others. It was so fascinating. We only just got started, but it is something for people to get, all over the world to just get a feel and understanding of Harriet Tubman and Harriet Tubman Learning Center that she is the head of and chair of. And we thank you again, and we'll end it at this time, but you don't leave, but we're gonna let them leave. And we'll see you guys next time. And definitely watch, like, subscribe, comment, and really enjoy this video. And if you want to watch it over and over, do so. It's just a great, informative and inspiring, and a little bit of entertainment, piece of work that we were able to create today through this show. Till next time, stay positive and contact her and be positive and do great things and help their organization, which is meaningful beyond what we can say is positive. Till next time, bye bye. Okay, thank you.